Good evening, gentlemen. I'm going to talk to you on a very controversial topic, and this concerns the Air Force. Now, I was just listening to a video of the President of the United States, Donald Trump, and he says something very disturbing. He says India has spent billions of dollars in getting sophisticated Rafale fighters. Yes, that's very true. At the same time, he says these planes were not successful and many were shot down by Pakistan. Now, I don't know what to say about it, but I have seen a video which has been put out by the Chinese, and they have photographed a Rafale fighter being shot down in Pakistan. Now, India hasn't admitted to the loss of any Rafale fighter, but at the same time, Trump says many have been lost. And he was a little intrigued, and in his video, he says he rang up the French to ask him what's happened. And the French told him, our planes are very good. The fault is not with the plane, but it's with the pilots. And Trump goes on to give a homily. Homily means advice. He says, you have to learn everything, go to the study books, plan out everything, read through the manuals, because training is very important. And countries which win wars train themselves properly and get ready for it. Now, this is a very damning statement from the President of the United States and puts the Indian Air Force in the dock. Trump is in the habit of making sensational statements. Let's accept the fact. Maybe what he said is not 100% true, but to say that everything is false is also wrong. So the question arises, where do we go from here? Now, the danger to India is that India is losing its edge over Pakistan and China. Now, the Chinese have got a massive army, almost running into 2.5 million, where the Indian standing army is, I think, at about 1.2 million, half of the Chinese. And Pakistan has got an army of about 700,000 men. That's a very big army for a country which is 1/5 the size of India. And now China is fighting a proxy war against India. That's the point which I'm making out. And we must bear in mind what Donald Trump has said. That means you've got to train your pilots, you've got to have the necessary technical skill to fly sophisticated machines and then go into battle. The Chinese are being very, very overt, and they are telling everything in the open. They have fast-tracked the supply of the F-35 fighters, that is the Chengdu, the J-35, the Chengdu, that is the 6th generation fighter, the 5th generation fighter to Pakistan, and I think 40 planes are going to be given to Pakistan. Now, my personal opinion about the Chengdu, that is the J-35, is pretty poor. I don't think it's even a match for the plane which the Russians have got, that is the Su-57. The Su-57 would be a few yards ahead of the J-35. In any case, it's not a match for the F-35. Now, Trump is hammering out at one particular point, that is, India paid billions, but they didn't train their people properly. And the second point which India makes out is that India has not been given the source code of the F-35, and the French have flatly refused. No, sir, we are not going to give it to you. So what you've got from France is a half-baked machine. You can't indigenize it, you can't put your own rockets on it, your own weaponry, and if you have to put anything onto it, you'll go back to the French and they'll take their own cut of pound of flesh. Like Shylock in The Merchant of Venice, they take their pound of flesh and then only they'll give it to you, and by that time things may be a little late. I just wonder how the Indians who were negotiating for the Rafale at that time, in such a hurry at that time, Modi went and placed an order for 36 Rafales immediately when he came into power. And that is a point to be studied. Why did the Indian Air Force team, which had gone to France to study these planes, go into the technical aspects of this aircraft? The technical aspects, friends. What happened to that? Nothing, zero. Everybody knew about the source code. Why didn't they say, well, we're going to get the source code or no? And they were so jumping with joy. We got 36 planes because these planes were introduced into India after nearly 2 decades. For 2 decades, the Air Force was led to rot. Go ahead. And now suddenly you give them a sophisticated machine and you expect them to handle it straight away. You see now, I've been in the Air Force for a long time. Now when the MiG was introduced in India, everyone was not proficient with it, but over a period of time we all became very proficient on the MiG. But to get proficiency on the MiG, it took us nearly a decade. That is why the MiG didn't do anything in the 65 war. Nothing, zero. It was not used. And very little use was made of it even in the 71 war. And basically, the Pakistanis put up a damn good air defense. I've done a study of that in Staff College. The air defense of Pakistan in 71 was very good. So that doesn't mean India was having a poor air force or something. They put in hard work. But what I'm making out is to get proficiency on aircraft, you can't get it in 3 months. You've got to fly the plane any number of hours and then only you get proficiency. And most of the pilots, I think who were being utilized for the uh, Rafale, I think would be better off with more practice. So India, as I told you, is in the trouble, and Donald Trump has offered the F-35. That's a very sophisticated plane, and it's the most advanced fighter in the world, but then it has to be piloted properly, proper training. And Trump is keen to send the plane to India. And he's been really very sarcastic when he says that India went in and bought the Rafale for billions of dollars. That's very correct. But these planes should have tilted the tide 150% in favor of India once they had this crap with Pakistan, which lasted only 3 days. And India was saying it's a fight which will not stop, that is Operation Sindoor, and we're going to continue. It's a pause. Why should you have a pause? I would understand the meaning of a pause. Were the objectives met? Were they achieved with which the operation began? Could we teach Pakistan a lesson? I don't think anything like that happened. Pakistan is, cock a hoop. They are celebrating victory. And the Indians are not celebrating victory. I haven't seen anybody talking much about happiness at what happened in the 3 day scrap with Pakistan. Everybody thinking that India is going to have a decisive result, beat the hell out of the Pakistani. It didn't happen that way. And I feel very sad when the Chinese have put out the video of a Indian plane being shot down. That is the Rafale. But gentlemen, one thing let's bear in mind, India is a mighty power also. But power is how you marshal your resources. If you go to the history of warfare from Montgomery, then you have to marshal your resources, have your political aim, and have cooperation, offense, and the order of battle. Everything has to be done up, planned out. And I'm sure the Air Force would have planned it out. But I'm still a little wonderstruck as to why the war was stopped in 4 days. Because the objective is not met. The killers of the Pahalgam massacre are still running around. I don't know whether they're in India or they're gone to Pakistan where they will be given a lot of, things to eat and have a good time. And why is it that the majority of the population in Kashmir, despite all that Modi has done for them, is still anti-India? I think basically it's a concept, I think I'm coming back to something else. Because this thing fired up with the statement by Donald Trump. And now I have a look around. I find Iran had been supplying weapons to Pakistan during this period also. And the sad part is that India had broken its fences with Russia, and Russia never came on the side of the Indians totally. No statement from Russia came that they will support India or Pakistan is a terrorist state. The Chinese were keeping quiet, very diplomatic, but the countries that are supposed to face terror, the British, the French, the Germans, they're all silent. Nobody condemned Pakistan, neither the Americans. And general feeling was that it was a war which had been thrust on in the Pakistanis. So probably that's what Modi must have realized at some stage that India's got no support, and so he gave up the battle. I thought even earlier, as I had meant, I've said in my videos, that you can't just start a war and bombing terrorist camp and all that if you don't have the wherewithal to continue it. The Israelis continue for years. Have we got that capacity? That's a question which the Indian government has to answer. My suggestion is that if there is a terrorist act in Kashmir, then we look at the roots of the problem, and the roots of the problem are the Kashmiri people who don't want to be with India. We got to change the demographic population of that place. It's not difficult. It's not an impossible task. We can send so many people there, who would be uh, help change the demography, give land to the farmers, the retired ex-servicemen, etc. And you can have a form of martial law there. Why not? I just fail to understand why, when Narasimha Rao was the Prime Minister, what the hell he was doing sitting there, the Prime Minister of India, and all Kashmiri Pandits were being thrown out. Why didn't he enforce military rule, martial law at that time? I got no answer, frankly, because I really was not in the know of things which were happening. But yet, there's so many things which come to my mind now, and particularly this scrap with Pakistan, in which India won. I'm sure that we won. We were better off than Pakistan. But then somebody must realize it. Somebody must recognize it. Nobody seems to recognize it. That's the point I'm coming to. And Trump making the statement that the Rafales being shot down all over and the Indian pilots not being properly trained or something like that, because he says he asked the French, what's wrong with your plane? And this is what the French told Donald Trump. Now, India must counter that. Somebody makes a video and makes a statement like that. Why don't the Indians counter all this? We have to counter it. We are got wonderful people here, and I'm sure now with the Su-57 coming, I think it will be better. I think India should put the Rafale where it is, not take any more planes. I'm not in favor even earlier of getting the Rafale at all. At that time, I don't know what was the thinking in Narendra Modi's mind. He wanted to play a middle path. He didn't want to buy the American plane, he didn't want to buy a Russian plane, he wanted to buy a French plane. I think better the French plane would have been the Swedish fighter. That would have been a better one, or maybe the Eurofighter, the European fighter. They could have used that. But then that's called military planning. That's what the way you look at it. And the Air Force team must be faulted for when they were negotiating with the French for not asking for the source code. Why didn't they ask for the source code? And why they didn't put it in the contract? So, well, gentlemen, so many things which happen. And the best part, the saving grace is that our guns and our targets were smack hit. We did a good job, and Pakistan was on its last legs, I'm told. 9 of the airfields were hit. But all this must come out to the world. They must know about it. We should not have a statement like Mr. Donald Trump, the president, making some statement. And how did he make it? Why didn't somebody come up in support of what India did in the battle report? I haven't seen anybody talking like this. The BBC says something against India, and then most of the French radio says the same thing, the German says the same thing, the Australian also. I haven't come across any of the foreign broadcasters giving the Indian point of view. So, gentlemen, this calls for a lot of introspection. I'll stop it here. There's more to make a long video. But I think all of you must think about it and project India forward. That's what's required. Whatever we do, what are the use if we had the upper hand in the battle and we aren't able to convey it to the world? I think then, in that case, uh, there needs to be a serious thinking, a think tank to work out what's happened. And it's better to have people like Shashi Tharoor in the Congress, in the government now, and a lot of dead wood I find sitting in the cabinet who will be better off going and sitting in some Pathshala or something like that. Thank you, gentlemen. I think I'll close now. I'll say goodbye. I hope you like this video. And if you like it, then subscribe, share it with your friends, come back more. In the meanwhile, I'll wish you all goodbye, good luck, and Jai Hind.